afternoon, good evening, early good morning to everybody from around the world. It's been wonderful to see all of you here for these weekly hangouts. In difficult times, we need each other more than ever, and I've taken a lot of pleasure and comfort in seeing familiar faces. Today, we are talking about TEDx going virtual, but I want to say a couple of words about the context. All of us around the world are going through a very difficult time. We are experiencing it together, but kind of in different phases, right? Members of our community in China, arguably, hopefully, are beginning to see the end of it. Some neighboring countries maybe are coming out on the other side. Some of us are just in the thick of it now. Our friends across Spain, Italy, Germany, France, New York is hit hard. And really, it's everywhere, north, south, east, west. We're all experiencing it in one way or another. During this time, as we experience fear and illness and death and mourning and isolation, we are needed by our communities more than ever. The world needs us. Your community needs you. Our community needs each other. So that's one context to what we're going to talk about. Looking perhaps, hopefully, a few weeks away, 4, 5, 6, take your guess on when we'll start walking out of our homes and start moving into recovery mode. The world is also going to be different and needing. People are going to be waking up. We're going to be waking up to the fact that we live on one planet, that we are all one species of humans, that we need collaboration and we need each other to get through this. We'll question everything in life. We'll reevaluate everything in life. We'll challenge everything in life. And during that time, the voice of TEDx events around the world is going to be needed more than ever, because we cannot take for granted that coming out of a difficult time, the voices of reason and the values that all of us hold so preciously of global collaboration, humanity, science, all those things will be the voices that are heard. There will be other people who will spread fear and bigotry and pseudoscience and nationalism, right? And so more than ever today and in 2, 4, 6, 12 weeks, TEDxers have an important role to play. TED has an important role to play. And this is today about what can we do together when we may not be able to gather physically in a room. And that doesn't mean that just during the period of isolation. It is possible that when we all start coming out of our homes, where in those countries where we're in, and as this thing goes and maybe comes back, it could be a while until it's going to be really comfortable to bring people into a room. And we want to make sure that we advance our mission during this period as well. So today, that's what we're talking about, advancing our mission during a period where we can't convene. And how do we make virtual TEDx be as amazing it can be? We want to tell you that, yes, you can do TEDx virtually. We're going to tell you, yes, please do TEDx virtually. We would love to see it. The world needs it. It's a great opportunity for you. We're going to talk about how to. The how-to conversation just starts today. We're going to figure it out over the coming weeks. But at the end of the day, I'm confident because I always describe TEDx for years, for the 6 years I've been here. I always say magic happens when people and ideas come together. When I describe all of the magic that happens in your events. And in my mind, I always visualize people and ideas coming together in a physical room. But I think we can maintain that magic, bringing people and ideas together. We just are going to do it differently through technology. So we have 2 sections to today. Well, actually, we have 3 sections. We have guests who are going to talk about what they're doing already in the virtual space. We are then going to bring some members of the TEDx team. I'll ask them 2 or 3 questions about resources available to you. And then we'll open up to Q&A. It's going to be super packed. We have 50 minutes left. I want to try and keep us on time. So let's get started with Gerry Garbulsky, the TEDx organizer. Well, Caroline introduced you. Most people know you. Hi, Gerry.
Hey, Jay.
Let's start. You've kind of jumped on this thing. I know, obviously, like the rest of us, things are challenging in your community. Maybe talk about that. And before we talk about your upcoming event next week, Talk about what you've done in the last days. It seems months now, but it's only been days.
Yeah, I mean, we have we got a little lucky in Argentina because the pandemic is coming a little later. So we are watching carefully what other countries are doing. And we see the tsunami coming soon to us. So we are trying to get ready for that. And within our team at TEDxRiodelaPlata, we are extremely motivated because we feel that these are the times where you can either become irrelevant to your community or become hugely relevant, depending on what you do. You know, in normal times, you can move a little bit up and down in terms of how relevant you are to your community, but it is in these times where you can make a huge difference in your own trajectory. And that's how we feel about it. And we're extremely motivated to make a difference to our local community. So we had this normal event scheduled for April the 8th, 2,000 people and a bunch of talks, I mean, the usual stuff. And a week and a half ago, 10 days ago, we realized that that was not going to be possible. So we canceled that. And instead, we decided to run our first 100% virtual event on Tuesday next week. That's March the 31st.
So what's cooking for that date? That was just an incredible turnaround time. And if I'm not mistaken, you actually moved the date earlier, right? You had an event.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So we feel a lot of urgency to do this. I mean, the team is, I mean, we are pulling all-nighters to get ready for this. Not just us, but the speakers and the whole extended team. And we are very excited, also scared because we are innovating and I'm sure we are going to screw up in a few things because this is completely different from what we're used to. But we are willing to take the risk, and people are quite forgiving in this time. So this is the time to take risks.
Are we going to be able to come and watch you screw up? Will there
of
be
course,
a link?
Please do. Yes, yeah. Yes. It's going to be on.
Is it open to the TEDx community as well?
Of course. It's in Spanish, though. So you'll enjoy it if you can understand Spanish. And it's going to be broadcast on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. And also we struck this deal with the local version of PBS, so the public TV station in Argentina. They are going to cancel their normal programming and they're going to broadcast this 2-hour event to the whole country live. So that's extremely exciting.
Yeah, which is unique and very special. So let's talk about what's coming up on Tuesday. What are we going to see? Specifically, I want to talk about this concept that we want to really understand today of what is a pre-recorded talk versus a live talk. And we are encouraging all of the TEDx community to be, as you bring speakers either through programming or to your event, pre-recording is lower risk, easier to do, better to control quality. Gerry, what are you doing?
Yeah, let me step back a little bit from that, and I'll come back to your specific question. You know, when internet first came around in the early 90s, newspapers, the first version of an online newspaper was the print version on a PDF. So essentially, it was not taking any advantage of the power of the internet whatsoever. It was doing what we are used to do and putting it online in a clumsy way. So our first instinct would be to say, well, let's run the same event we used to run with in person, and let's broadcast it somehow. But then when you start looking into it, you realize that it's a completely different game. First of all, both myself, I'm going to be hosting, and the speakers will be joining from their homes. So we will not be even ourselves physically together. So that imposes a huge number of challenges to organizing this event. So we have, to your question, what we are doing to be on the safe side, we are pre-recording the talks, giving each of the speakers instructions on how to do it. Of course, we'll develop those instructions over the next 48 hours, and we probably forget things and then realize that we should have said this or that when we get the videos back. But that's one thing. And then we are broadcasting their talks live. Essentially, rather than putting the pre-recorded talk on the streaming channel, we're going to try to have them give their talk live, so really live. And then if something goes wrong, then we have the backup option of sending the pre-recorded talk. And then we, of course, are going to record the streaming and we'll have the option afterwards.
You mean if something goes wrong, you will have the option of sending the pre-recorded talks to TED to upload. But
no, to send it live as well. It depends on when it goes wrong.
So for some reason, if the live connection doesn't work or the audio doesn't work, you say, okay, we have something ready. Okay, and it's your backup.
So we have a person doing the switching of all the signals. Will have that option, and our general producer will make the call. So I'm going to be hosting, so I will not have the bandwidth, the mental bandwidth to make those calls. So we have another person in charge of that. And then after the event, we'll have two versions of the talk recorded, the live version and the pre-recorded version. And then we'll look at both and decide which one we'll put through the uploader.
What are you doing except for the talks?
So the second challenge I think we have is how to make this a community event. So not like a TV show or a broadcast event, but rather have the same feel of community we have in our in-person events. I think that's the largest challenge we have. So we are coming up with some ideas. The overall theme of the event is going to be Big Bang. In fact, we chose that theme like 5 months ago, even before we knew about coronavirus. And we are now in the middle of a Big Bang. So of course, we are going to refer to the coronavirus, but in the framework of the overall theme of Big Bang. And we are going to ask our audience to actively listen to the talks and think about what is it that they are going to do when this is over. And the talks will give them food for thought to reflect on their own attitudes towards the end of the pandemic. And then we are going to put together a huge time capsule where each of the participants in the event will send us through an interface we're building now, their own phrase. It's going to be a tweet-size phrase, very short. And we are going to ask them whether they give us permission to publish that on Twitter or whatever, or Instagram. And then we are building a system so that whenever the pandemic is over, we'll privately send each of them what they wrote to themselves.
Oh, that's nice.
So that they get it at the end as a reminder of what they thought after listening to the talks. And then
go ahead.
Say that again. No, and then we'll also publish it if they allow us to do that.
Yeah, that's
one of the things we are doing, and we are doing a bunch of other things. We'll test a few things. Some will work, some will not work, and we'll learn from that.
Well, we're excited to see it. I'm sorry there is a little bit of a delay between my audio and yours, so I step on top of you a little bit. But we can't wait to see what you create. This is the joys of experimentation. This is the time to screw up. And no, everybody forgives you, and all of us here on this call is just accepting it with love. And before we all went live on the call, Gerry was expressing like the team is tense. People are nervous. They are on the edge. They have a lot of anxiety, and so do we, by the way. But by throwing myself into work and focusing on how I can serve. And how we can serve our community. It's a great way to deal with that anxiety. Thank you, Gerry. Hang in there. We're gonna go over to Claire and bring Claire on the screen so I can see her. Claire, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, great. So you have hi. So your event was scheduled for April. Tell us what's been going on in your world at TEDxExeter.
Okay, so our event was scheduled for the middle of April, and we came to the realization just about 3 weeks ago that wasn't going to go ahead, even though in the UK at that time, coronavirus hadn't really arrived. We had to make some quick decisions. We were facing financial liabilities for cancellation charges at that point. And I can't believe it's just over 2 weeks since we made the announcement to our community, and we're now in lockdown. Everything has changed in that time. So it's been huge, and I think it's been a time in the UK of people really catching up with what's happening. And so we're all at slightly different stages. There's a lot of panic, there's a lot of fear. They've been the first people tragically have died in our city now, and everybody's locked down. So we decided pretty quickly we couldn't do our event. spoke to all our sponsors and our speakers who are ready to come, and they've all moved to 2021, which feels right. But in the meantime, we're now looking at doing a very different virtual event in 6 to 8 weeks' time, we're not quite sure, where we're really going to focus on where we are as a community and what this community needs from us as TEDx now. So we're going to look at grief and loss, and we're going to look at how we can feel joy even in these times, and we're going to still look at how we can forge the future that we want, the future that we need. But there's something that feels quite important, which is pivoting away from that panic, taking a breath, finding out where everybody is and what people need and what we can really do to serve our community now.
That's interesting. So certainly when you're thinking about the speakers to bring, a lot of it is taking care. A lot of them sound like we're taking care of our well-being and mental health. What are you thinking on curating when it comes to kind of the harder side? Like, are you thinking of science? Like, what are you thinking that's the science category? I'm curious. Or in other kind of
we have pre-recorded a talk that's actually about neuroscience and free will. So actually we're going to kick off with that. And the event as we see it at the moment is then to move through thinking about actually through a young marine biologist who works a lot on grief and the marine environment and how a lot of young environmentalists are facing into grief and loss at the moment. And I think he'll really help us articulate what so many of us are feeling in the ether right now through his work, which will be really interesting. We're then going to look at how we can stay active and not lose hope through an activist speaker who does incredible work on child hunger and was going to come and speak about that. But it's actually talking to us about how we stay engaged. And I feel for our community, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of jump to fill up the online space, and people are very chatty, and it feels important for us to slow down, to get past the peak, if the peak does in fact come in mid-April, and let everybody settle and then think about what we can offer most then. We then plan to ground it actually in conversations around planning for a countdown event and thinking about how we can ground it back into the future that we want to build for our city and how we can galvanize, towards that.
Yeah.
A huge part of it, also thinking about our team. And our team are just, in lockdown. Some of them are in incredible jobs being responsible for the allocation of healthcare, and we know there isn't enough when this really hits us. So that's where their focus is. Others, their businesses are failing, others are self-employed and there is no work. So I think there's something really important for me in all of this in sort of holding the team and serving the team and deepening those connections. So paradoxically, we're spending a lot more time together online as a team, talking to each other, checking in with each other, and really working through what we can do to offer to the wider community in a few weeks.
That's so important because everybody here who's on the call knows that you don't have a TEDx event if you don't have a great team. And so coming together, you're finding that how are you keeping your team connected, energized, and I guess emotionally feeling good and strong? Any particular observations or insights?
I'm seeing a real, it's really interesting because everyone's in different positions, and yet this is deepening their connection with each other. People who haven't necessarily volunteered in similar areas of our events are getting to know each other better, and as we always find, the magic of that synergy is so much stronger than us all working individually. And that's something we would want to then replicate in this event. So I'm really interested to learn from people who've managed or who are thinking ahead about how we help our community feel engaged in what we offer rather than a participant. We've always live streamed very widely, and we've always been really interested that even though there is a live stream and people can watch that at home, they gather in groups at libraries and in workplaces and in hospitals. They want to have that meeting, and I'm curious to see how we can somehow help people connect in a virtual event in some of the ways that they manage to do when they're together.
Yeah, and I think, thank you, Claire. I think that will be one of the hardest challenges for everyone who is thinking about doing a virtual TEDx event, because we all know that the magic is the combination of two things: really great ideas by credible speakers. The content, the speaker on stage, the TEDx talk is really important. But the feeling of connectedness and the feeling of surprise and what comes next, and I'm here, and everything that happens off stage, the cards that you give them, the things you put in the bag under their chairs, games that you play, that creates, like, opens up people's minds. I know there's going to be so much innovation on this front. Whatever, like, I'm just starting to hear about what people are thinking, and there's going to be a lot, but that's the hardest part. And there'll be places for everyone to learn from each other on the TEDx Hub. And I'm going to talk a little bit more how we're going to capture these lessons and share it with all of you so you can have it. Thank you, Claire. I'm going to move on to our third guest this morning, Colin, who heads up the media team at TED. Good morning, Colin. You're also in New York, so I can say good morning to you.
Good morning.
So we just launched this week at TED this thing called TED Connects Community and Hope. For those people who have not read our emails or seen our social media, just describe very briefly, just first describe what is TED Connects that we started last Monday.
Yeah, it's a live daily live stream that we hold at noon Eastern time. We've held every day this week through the week, and looks like we may continue beyond this week. Really with the idea of being able to kind of tap into the conversation that's happening and tap into the opportunity we have with our network of speakers and experts who I think have been reaching out to Chris and to our whole curation team saying, what can I do to help? And so we thought, let's move quickly. I think the idea for it came up maybe last Wednesday or Thursday, and then we were live as of this Monday. We had a lot to kind of figure out in the ensuing days to go live, but to really provide not only ways to kind of unpack the headlines and go a little bit deeper behind, everything specific to COVID-19 and Corona, but more like what's the circle around that? What are the larger ideas and things that people are discussing? So the psychologist Susan David was our first speaker on Monday, who talked about emotional resiliency. How do we take the TED lens into everything that's happening in the news, but provide a different way of thinking about it? I think bringing a little bit more of a multi-dimensional perspective on it. So over the course of this week, we have Susan David on Monday, we had Bill Gates, we had Gary Liu, we'll have Priya Parker, who's an expert on the art of gathering and what does gathering look like when you can't gather in person. So I think it was kind of zooming in and zooming out and ideally providing, I think a little bit understanding what's going on in the news, but bringing a more of an ideas-centric view on it and hopefully more of a sense of hope and a different perspective. I think that's kind of the hope with it. But we're doing an hour live every day this week, and we'll continue doing that. And the response has been fantastic. I would say it's 50% of it's about getting content out into the world that we think is meaningful. And I think the other 50% of it is just creating a gathering space for people. It's why we wanted to do it at the same time every day. So we could say, if this matters to you, if you like the TED community, if you like our speakers, if you like the other people who join the discussion, come and spend an hour with us at noon every day. Take a break from everything else going on. Think more deeply. Share your thoughts and discussions. We're sourcing questions live from the audience. We're sourcing questions beforehand, and then we're getting questions live and asking the speakers that way as well. And so far, so good. We've seen a really strong response.
Yeah, so as you say, it's community and hope. And I like to just punctuate something that you've said, that this is not about competing with the news cycles. It's about panning out and trying to give some deeper perspective on some things that are happening in the news, but going wider, going in kind of more comprehensive about what are humans experiencing at this time. Like on Monday, on Friday, we have speakers who are more about emotional health and connection and all that. So that's good. I've seen your team, Colin. I know when Chris said, let's do this, I think it was like Wednesday, and then we were on air on Monday, and Chris is doing it from his home. And, everybody here on this call knows that TED is a perfectionist organization. Everything that we do is so perfectly beautiful, and now we're kind of winging it. How do you, when you sit there, how are you thinking about like to make sure this comes across as TED, even though it might not look like regular TED?
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, that's been hard, but one of the most enjoyable parts of it is kind of letting that go. So yeah, when I think about TED, I think about we're premium, we're very, considered in the way that we present everything that we do. That's a big part of what it is. And we don't have that ability to do that right now. The playing field is leveled. Everyone's in their homes. We have kind of a very limited set of technological tools to broadcast this. So what makes it TED? I think it's the ideas and the content. It's not the presentation. It's not it's not the technology. It's about, we had Bill Gates, like only TED can convene the people that we've convened this week. I think our convening power is very important. I think the way that Chris and Whitney Pennington Rogers, our current affairs curator, who's co-hosting with him, the kind of thinking that they're bringing to the interviews. And then I think the contributions from the community, all those things are what make it uniquely TED. And it's funny, what we've seen from the audience reaction is that they actually really enjoy seeing this kind of fast and loose approach from TED. It's fun to see Chris sitting on his couch in his living room and Bill Gates, streaming from his desk in Washington and Whitney from her living room in New Jersey. Like we're all in it together. And I think there's something very authentic about it, but still very TED-like in what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's good. And you're right, like focusing on the fact that what's special about TED and TEDx is the content, the credible speaker, and the quality of the ideas and the conversation, something that all TEDxers bring to the table. In your community, you also have access to speakers, former speakers, future speakers, people who would just come to you because you've got the TEDx platforms. All of these pre-recorded talks that you create, as long as they conform to our general standards of content, right? They're credible speaker, they're credible topic, presented reasonably. The format doesn't matter. They will all be uploaded to the TEDx channel, and they will have the same chance of spreading, just like any talk on stage. So during this period, we are taking all this content just as regular content, and that's an opportunity for your speakers to get their message out. Thank you, Colin. I know you've got another one of these today, every day. So if you need to jump off, feel free. By the way, I strongly encourage everyone to do regular programming. If you wish to do regular programming and share ideas on a weekly basis or whatever, daily, monthly, we encourage you to do it. We discourage you from doing it live, because I can see to do this in a live setting, there's a lot of risk and it takes a lot of people and it's a lot of anxiety every day. TED has the resources to do it. You might be better off in your team. If you want to issue a weekly talk, just pre-record it and then host it live. You can come online saying, it's published every Wednesday at noon, but nobody needs to know it's pre-recorded. It'll just come across much, much better. So pre-recorded is great. Live may not be the best. Thank you, Colin. I want to quickly, before we talk to the TEDx team a little bit, I want to bring on, I don't know if we can bring on Zigard, the organizer of TEDx Oslo. Are you online, and can we maybe see you on camera? Zigard, are you there? If you are on mute.
There you go.
There you go. Hi,
yeah.
Hi, Zigard. So you have an event. TEDx Oslo is going virtual on Friday. Tell us.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow is Friday. Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Yeah, we're in the middle of production. We're doing fine. I've been listening in for a couple of minutes, and it's
What's on your plan tomorrow?
Sorry.
What are you going to do tomorrow? What's TEDx Oslo virtual edition going to look like?
We have managed to get a deal with Zoom, so they are actually our sponsor tomorrow. So we're going to do it on the Zoom platform, and we're going to use the webinar solution. So we got up to 5,000 visitors, live visitors. And we challenged the speakers to do it live, actually. And I know you just said that you pre-recorded was maybe the best, but one thing I like about the live thing is that it creates a tension between the audience and the speakers. And so we want to kind of experiment and see if it works. We're quite lucky in Norway too, because we have a bandwidth on the internet here in Norway. So this is not a big problem. But of course, we can experience different sorts of problems. But yeah, we'll see tomorrow. The plan is to record the talk after the event if some things happen.
Yeah. Will this be available online for live streaming? Will people who are not registered as attendees be able to see this, or is this only for invites?
No. Well, we have kind of treated this like a regular TED. So you need to log in. It's free, but you need to log in with a name and an email. So I haven't discussed this with Ted yet, how we're going to do this when it comes to the questionnaire after the event, but we'll at least have the email addresses.
Okay. Well,
we tested it out, and sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, we tested it, and it seems like you can actually log on with a fake email. So we have no idea what kind of quality it will be on. But yeah.
Okay, good. Well, look, I'm delighted that you're experimenting, and I love to see how live speakers go, because if it's actually working for most of you, then I'm happy to be proven wrong. We're only making that as a suggestion, as an idea of lowering the amount of effort and increasing the amount of success. But we're excited to see this tomorrow. I'm going to log in with my real email so we can check it out. Maybe you can type in the chat here. Maybe you can type in the address of where to find it if people want to join in. Thank you, Sigurd, and best of luck for tomorrow. So what you've now is you've seen TEDxers are already going virtual. Experimentation is going on. Learnings is beginning as early as tomorrow and will be taking place over the coming weeks. We're going to watch. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to get some things right, and we are going to figure this out. Before I ask my team, I want to invite some team members of mine just to ask a couple of questions. But I want to make one announcement, one clarification. First of all, Michael Ryan is on the call. Michael, unmute yourself and say hi, and your video will jump up for most people. Many of you might know Michael. Say hi, Michael. There you go. Many of you know Michael because he's a member of our team. He's been working on global partnerships, but I have pulled him and asked him to play another important role over the coming weeks, to become the project leader for TEDx Virtual, like thinking of all the innovations, all the best practices for going virtual with TEDx, and he's going to be making that a focus of his attention, so he can actively gather the learnings, disseminate the learnings, work with TED to see what they're doing, look at the market, what they're doing. Any ideas that you have, any questions, he is also behind TEDx@TED.com, so you will get any emails or suggestions or ideas. He will work, of course, with Caroline and Taylor and Frederica, but we are putting an extra resource just to focus on this because we're trying to learn how to do this really quickly. The second thing I want to say is I would like everyone to be aware of two different concepts when it comes to going to kind of leaving the physical auditorium. The first concept is the concept of digital content. That is either a pre-recorded talk or a talk that you do live. That can be part of a virtual event, but it doesn't have to be part of a virtual event, right? During this period, we are allowing anyone who has an active TEDx license, if you want to record a weekly talk with a speaker because you feel they've got an idea that your community and the world needs to hear, you may do so from your living room and you may publish it to your community. You can upload it and then we'll publish it to our community, to your community and to the world. So you don't have to have a virtual event to be recording this digital content. We're allowing you to separate those two. We, of course, encourage you to always thinking about when it's time to do your annual or semi-annual event, create a virtual gathering. And during that virtual gathering, you will have audience engagement, participation, conversation. You will show talks, whether they're live or pre-recorded. So digital content can live inside a virtual event, but it can also live on its own as part of programming that you do online. If that concept was not so clear to you, I did my best to explain it. If it's not clear to you, just type it on the chat and say, I'm not sure I got this, because our team is working to just clarify the two concepts. We're creating web pages I'll introduce to you in a second. Let's bring Michael, Ryan, Will Davis, and Caroline. Could you, all three of you, come on video? And I think just for this section, if we can turn off the other videos on the screen so just we can see these four folks, please. There we go. Will, let me start with you. We're talking to you you're in Sydney, Australia. You've been working overnights to keep up with our hours. And tell us, if I'm a TEDx organizer and I'm excited, I want to do a virtual TEDx event, I guess I would ask two scenarios. One, I want to do one next week, even though my regular event was approved for 2 months from today. Or I want to switch my events. What do I need to do? Is there a special license, special application?
Sure. There's no special license, no special application. If you have an existing license that's still active, which means that it's within the 12 months since the license was approved, you can move your event date forward if you've got a future event date, and you can just set your event page to represent that event. On the event page itself, it has a webcast checkbox. So now people will be going to TED.com and looking for events that are online by just checking webcast and then seeing events that are upcoming for that. So you still have that ability to just change it around. If you want to just pre-record talks and publish them without a virtual event gathering, you can just do that at any time within your expiry period, within the license period. So you don't need a special event license to pre-record talks and publish them.
Okay, so that's luckily sounds pretty straightforward. Caroline, how did I do on the explaining the difference between the two formats? Maybe you can help me out here.
I thought it was a 10 out of 10. But in terms of formats, I think the biggest things to remember that, yes, we recommend that you pre-record your talks for a virtual event. But like Jay said, there's a distinction between hosting a virtual event, and you can think of that like hosting your own TEDx event, but just with a different vehicle, with a different stage, and that stage is virtual. That is a virtual event. It's your TEDx event using virtual tools. That's simple. And then we have all these recommendations on how you can do that, and all the same guidelines for content and anything else that we would have for your TEDx event. Separately, there's stuff that's not your event. If you want to produce digital content, it also would fall into the same rules that we always have about content. But it does mean that it doesn't have to fall under the umbrella of an event. So we, and that has been allowed since 2015 to innovate within the format. You've always been able to do that. We have some great examples of that. And Jay, is it okay if I plug our FAQs on virtual events?
No, plug. I would like to actually not just plug, but please tell them what resources we're working on and posting today to make available to them.
Yes, so we have just published, so it's online, it's ready. And Taylor, I know you're going to send it in the chat in just a moment. Already on the TEDx Hub, and we posted on the Facebook, FAQs on virtual events. And these cover also ideas on digital innovation and content. But these FAQs are meant to be a resource for you. We will develop many more. There's a lot more information coming to you. But these are some of the basic questions, like, do you need a license? The answer is yes, you need a license just like you always would. Can you host a virtual event? Yes. What could that look like? And we give you examples. There are even really specific diagrams that are beautifully done that we worked on with the production team at TED that show ideas on how you could record with a phone, how you can record with a computer, So it's quite wide ranging. I really encourage all of you to read it and to share it with your team. And I hope it's a good resource, but let us know any other questions you have and we'll answer them.
That's great. Thank you, Caroline. Michael, well, first of all, thanks for stepping into this role, and you will become the world-renowned expert on TEDx virtual events in just a week's time. You have no choice. A couple of things to think about, and I know you just started yesterday, but how would we think about getting partners to support financially an event that's going virtual, and maybe how you would think about ticketing at this point, because TEDxers make money to support their event through sponsorships and ticket sales. How's this going to work online?
Yep. So partnerships remain an exciting challenge as ever for TEDx organizers. That's right. And I would think about the TEDx rules on partnerships and how we approach partnerships. They're all the same. There's no editorial control you can offer a partner. The actual talks and ideas you're sharing should remain sacred and independent, but there's still so much you can offer a partner. So every brand, every company is going to be thinking about how they can have their brand and partner goals represented in this digital space right now. So think about what you can do for a partner on social media. The pre and post roll slides are your friends right now. You can still have presenting rights, event sponsorship, thank yous, those live thank yous that you would have done on your TEDx stage can now be a part of your broadcast and how you host and really acknowledge your partners. And then I would also say consider your email comms to your virtual attendees and how you can invite them to virtual partner workshops and get them to engage with different and relevant and meaningful campaigns your partner wants to engage them with.
You know, Claire used the word earlier when she spoke about her team and how the relationship is forming. She used the word deepening. And she said that how at this time it seems like there's so much deepening going on. And I immediately thought about my own team at work and how much I feel so much more connected to TED as an employee and to the people that I work with. It's also a good concept to take to your partners, because this is a time where partners who support events like this and get their brand present in this moment, they really have an opportunity to deepen their relationship. Michael, what's our policy on charging for tickets? Do we have one?
So it's all the same. All the same rules apply to charging for tickets. First, your normal TEDx event. The pricing guidelines are just the same. But we really would encourage you to think about the value you're offering to your attendees. And if you're going to price, there are going to be production costs with producing a virtual TEDx event. Price it appropriately. It's a hard case to imagine charging people $80, $90 US for a virtual event. Price it in the way that you think your community would receive it well, because you don't want to burn those relationships at this time. You want to make people still feel like you're giving a gift to their community during this crazy time.
And Michael, Sigurd from TEDx Oslo mentioned that they are doing a partnership with Zoom, which makes me think about, I know we've asked you to boost the area in the marketplace section with partnerships and resources for TEDxers. Tell us what you're thinking of doing there. Yeah,
so please check the sponsor marketplace regularly. It is going to be our friend over these next few weeks. TED has some partnerships in place. Of course, you can imagine the Zooms, the Blue Jeans of the world are all getting many requests from around the world, but we are definitely thinking about what we can offer the TEDx community and what you guys can offer them with these amazing insights, anecdotes, case studies that we can provide to those partners. So please send those our way so we have great success stories and we can advocate on your behalf.
And Will, I have one more question for you. Every time we have partners from coming in and meeting TEDx organizers in events, like if the Skull people meet TEDx organizers, they come to me and they say, wow, the TEDx organizers, they're so careful about the rules. They really understand the rules. And every time we talk about something, TEDxers ask, is this within the rules? Because the rules are really, really important in TEDx. It's what makes us work. Will, you're one of the people who spends a lot of time thinking about the rules and also checking with people when they don't necessarily are met. During this period, how are you thinking? Well, how should people think about the rules and kind of if when there are no rules really in these areas? What words of wisdom can you offer?
Sure. I think that with virtual events, you just have to remember that this is, like you said, ultimately what we do all the time. We bring together people and ideas, and the same methods apply. Like Michael mentioned, your stage, your content, it's still your space. It's not a sponsor space. So your talks, they're never controlled by sponsors, but everything else is now your playroom. Social media, email comms, your thanks and mentions of partners online, workshops, breakouts, all of these are accessible. So in terms of rules around this, there's not much that actually changes. There's so much flexibility that's already there. In terms of new rules, I don't think we're bringing anything new in. But when it comes to things like the 100 plus rule, the 100 plus rule is about a physical context. It's about bringing people into a physical space, because when you have a ratio of speaker to audience, that really matters. But when it comes to a live webcast, the more the merrier. Like, this isn't the same kind of risk that comes from that. So I don't think that that is really something that you would concern yourself with when you're webcasting. Also, if you're attracting more than 100 people, that's fantastic. You know, that's something to look at as success.
So to be clear, let me just say that even if you might have a license for only less than 100 people, meaning you have not been qualified for 100 plus, during this period of virtual events, you may invite more than 100 people to your virtual event, and that will be okay.
I think an easier way even to think, yes. I think an easier way to think about it is you could always do that with your webcast. You could always invite more than one people to your webcast, and that's what these are. So when you're creating this kind of interaction, I would not recommend that you have more than 100 people unmuted on a live stream at one time. That's what I would stay away from. But you're looking at a live stream that provides that kind of opportunity.
Right. What you're saying is, regardless on the classification of your license, you're allowed to have more than 100 people before this happened and now during this period. And I will just message to everyone, all we care about now is the spirit of our mission. And if your head and your heart is in the right place, if you make mistake and you stumble, we are going to work with you, and there will be no consequences. We're just trying to get the content out there, the ideas out there that can serve your communities. Okay. Wow. That was a lot. Thank you all to my team. I'm going to try and take some questions. My goodness. Let me see who's been queued up. Randy Bretz. Oh my God, Randy, I don't know if I said thank you to the email you've sent to me. Thank you to the email you sent to me. Unmute yourself and come share an idea with us.
Well, hi, Jay. I have missed my TEDx community, even Will Davis. I'm an old TV producer, and I've been producing television programs for years and years. And when I did a lot of transitioning to virtual programs, that experience kind of helped me out. You think about, if you're going to, just to talk in television terms right now, if you're going to produce a musical presentation, you sit down with a score and you pre-plan every shot. Every camera has a shot chart and tells them where to go next. So you get the piccolo solo and so forth. That's a good suggestion when you're producing a TED event or TEDx event virtually. Think about how it's going to flow. We always have a technical director. You've got somebody calling the shots. You got somebody on camera, but you have a technical director that's actually running things, pushing the buttons and so forth. And an organization that I'm involved with called Leadership Lincoln just did a program on Tuesday that normally is live. We had 100 people in. and we had a number of speakers, and we had a technical director, and then we had somebody actually running the program, and it worked. There are a lot of tools that you can think about. In the television world, we had film, we had video, live video, we had videotape. Plan that out, script it, and so forth. And the main thing that I guess I'll share with people is to pre-plan your open and close, and other things will kind of fall into place. But pre-plan, how are you going to start this? How are you going to end it? So those are just some of my thoughts. Just I scribbled them down while I was listening to everybody talking. So
thank you, Randy. And those are, I would encourage. Thank you for that. And I would encourage you to be more active than ever in capturing best practices and uploading them to the hub. We're going to have a special section on this. Any learnings that you have from other places, just capture them and we'll remove them. I have a question from Elena, who I can see on screen. Elena, you wanted to ask about TED Connect. You want to unmute and ask the question, and hi.
Yes, hello everyone. Hello from Greece. Great to see so many familiar faces. Good to be with you. Actually, I love the TED Connects format. I've been following all week, and a lot of people, and actually even friends, not necessarily TEDx-wise. And actually, before that happened, that was something that we were discussing with the team, not exactly as it came out through TED, but watching that on Monday was like, wow. And I think it's a great tool in the sense that, especially now that it's kind of a transition period, like what you mentioned about recorded or live or pre-recorded talks, that's something that can happen like gradually and happening as a connection with the community, but actually being live like this and bringing in either old speakers or new speakers on specific subjects that actually the audience can interact with, like by sending questions and preparing ahead of time with the speaker. I think this is amazing because it's like it's so much close to actually being the live thing, the real thing. So I was wondering whether we can actually do this in some way. I know maybe we won't have exactly all the tools that TED has at its disposal, but still all those things that are out there virtually, I think we can do things like that.
So thank you for the question, and it is fantastic to hear that. It's if you are up for it, we would absolutely support it. Let me tell you one thing that we are thinking of doing, and Caroline is going to come online and she's going to tell me when this is going to be ready. But the first thing we're doing is we want to allow you to redistribute, to share the content from TED Connect, like the programming we have with Bill Gates, etc. We're going to continue to do that on a regular basis. If you want to share some of these ideas with your community, but you're not sure that maybe they were reading the newspapers and they were not on TED.com, we're going to create a graphic presentation that will say something like TEDx Saloniki presents to you TED Connects with Bill Gates or whatever, and it will be a template that you can use on social, etc., to make it really easy for you to just share, but it looks very much like it's coming from your voice because you are deciding which ones of those you want to share with them. So this will be number one available to you, and I know the designers are working on the templates right now. What you also asked about, go for it. If you've got the bandwidth, you've got the speakers, you want to do it. I guess I'm going to think after this, I'm not making an announcement, but we'll think maybe we call it TEDx Connect. I don't know. We can, I don't want to create another brand now, but I'll think about what you would call it. Or maybe you just call it TEDx Saloniki Presents. We'll work on that. I think for now, stick with your regular brand because I don't want to create another one on the fly. But, and then you can maybe mix. So maybe one week you were like, oh my God, I've had a busy week. I don't have time to interview a speaker. I'll just use something from TED. But this gives you a chance to be connected to your community every week. Find the local voices, find the global voices. I love it. Yeah. So go for it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. We'll keep you posted.
Okay. No, it's nice to see you and good luck. I I wish we had another hour. Yesterday, I told my team, I think we need another 15 minutes, but we wanted to keep this short. Let me just do two things in 1 minute. First of all, we're going to see the questions on here. The questions that we didn't get to answer, the team is going to look at them and we'll find a way to answer them on the TEDx Hub. So go to the section, I don't know what section, you'll find it. If you're not sure, email us at TEDx@TED.com. We'll find it. We'll answer these questions. And these questions are helpful for us because we're trying to figure out what are your questions now, what did we not answer clearly. Also, I want to tee up next week's event. Next week, we're going to dedicate it to TED Circles. Alyssa Hampton is going to come. She's going to give you a deep dive into how you can activate your communities around TED Circles, how TEDx communities can meet amongst each other in a way that is low effort for you, high impact for them. It's going to be exhilarating. Come back and we'll talk some more and hopefully have room for more questions. Wonderful to see all of you. Thanks again to our guests. And let's keep the conversation going. See you in a week. Bye, everyone.